Have our education moment.
Okay, thanks. Here's a little different one today. Whole story. If you go back to New York, about over 100 years ago, you have some Italian families kind of consolidating some power and really diffused and spread out. And in 1920, 38 states passed Prohibition. So alcohol was illegal, and organized crime had a product. So Prohibition allowed the five families in New York to consolidate their power, but they did something super interesting. They could have fought each other over that business, but instead what they did was they consolidated, created a board of directors, created networks throughout the country, divided the city into five parts, five different businesses, stayed in their areas, didn't intermingle or fight, and had an equal board of five people. And then they ended up having people in Detroit, Buffalo, St. Louis that they could work to and get their network going. Then in 1933, Prohibition ended. That was a bad idea. Turned out we didn't need Prohibition. We needed women's suffrage, which was we didn't need that. 1919 was a lot better than Prohibition. So when that ended, they obviously had to change routes and went into gambling and labor unions and other nefarious things, but they stayed connected with each other and didn't fight each other. It wasn't until about 30 years later, in the late 50s, that they started importing heroin, and that's when things kind of went south. And a lot of the movies that we know, Goodfellas, Casino, with all the violence in those things, really shows what happened in the 60s and 70s. But going way back to the 1920s, when they were working together, just use that to think about your competitors. Sometimes we're stronger as an industry when we work together as opposed to try to cannibalize each other. So there's a lot more strength in going out to somebody who you're competing with in the same market and saying, well, how do we improve our industry? How do we get more people to want portable storage? And how do we work together to make sure that we could all survive and flourish? Now, maybe organized crime isn't like the best example of how to run a business, but if you look at it as an example of how to cooperate, there's a lot of lessons to be learned there. So find your competitors and reach out to them and see how you guys can grow together for your industry. And that's it today.